I don't know if many people know about what we do in the industry. Obviously, we've been covered off in the brochure today, but we've been going for 2 years. Short, I suppose, in life to some of our competitors, but we've achieved a lot with the support of the industry. So we're really proud of what we've achieved. So we're one of 3 dynamic production houses. We've got Grand Visual and Live Poster. Thank you to Neil last year for introducing us into those 3. We like to think that we cut through the complexity of producing dynamic out of home by doing it efficiently, effectively, and competitively, always concentrating on a high standard of account management. The reason that I'm presenting to you today is that I wanted to follow on from Neil Morris's presentation last year, but really introduce really innovative and award-winning campaigns. I wanted to take a lead from his presentation last year, looking at a historical look at those watershed dynamic campaigns, bring it up to date, and to show some of the more integrated dynamic campaigns that are being produced at scale, and most importantly, with a high ROI. So to do that, we wanted to apply some analytics, some statistical analytics, which I've done looking at about 6 or 7 different dynamic campaigns. So we've got the PR effect, which we've looked at, obviously really important for dynamic campaigns. The PR effect and the PR value that integrated dynamic campaigns is really, really important to the industry as a whole. True ROI, if I've managed to find it, true ROI figures and any sales uplift figures from those dynamic campaigns and how well they performed. The social effect, or the social media effect, I've gathered the statistics from various viral activity or the instigated social media conversation that went on around those dynamic campaigns. And probably the most important thing to us as an industry, the number of digital out-of-home impacts measured against the OTS, and where possible, more accurate data if it was available. So those are the analytics we looked at. I've been collecting these with the blessing of the specialists, media owners, so these figures should be correct, but do challenge me if not, but they do come from the source. Obviously, the 2 campaigns that we know and love historically have done so much good for our industry are Pepsi Max Bus Shelter and the British Airways Look Up campaign. Neil, I'm not going to play Pepsi Bus Max Shelter. It's been played far too much in the past. But in terms of the actual graph that we're looking at and how well these campaigns have performed, of course there are multiple dynamic campaigns in the past. And the campaigns on this graph that you're going to see across the top represent both watershed moments of the past and more recent integrated campaigns coming up to things like PHE. So I'm going to reveal some of the data around that integrated campaign that Sarah showed earlier. Okay, so BA Lookup campaign. Topping our chart from a social media perspective, remains one of the most successful on a social media impacts with 45 million impressions. That's pulling together the impressions for social media and for viral views. While this OTS with in-loop play on Coventry House and Chiswick Towers saw almost 300,000. So the OTS was 300,000, respectable. Pepsi Max, the social stats there, again, are staggering. 20 million viral plays, and that's just for the viral plays alone. I also was surprised to find out that, I don't know if you knew that, but the bus shelter was actually there for 2 weeks, extended from 1 to 2, at the behest of the client, and that had an OTS of 30,000. But that was, of course, that was one bus shelter. Now, all of this has done wonders for the industry, and we should actually celebrate the work that they've done, both in terms of from the advertising community. These campaigns have now placed us in the psyche of the advertising community. These are TV spots where interactive screens were actually part of TV spot advertising. So anything from a Kleenex moment to a man like a Willy Wonka movie jumps inside the screen and drives off in a car. So we've done a really good job. We're part of the psyche of the advertising community. But leading on, and let's have a look at some more dynamic campaigns. So Oreo, we saw that one about a year ago, the Oreo eclipse. It was time and geo-triggered linear content across 3 screens. So this was, they created a linear piece of content that revealed or hid the sun across 3 sites. It involved in-depth site planning for prime angle viral content. And what I mean by that is the camera was positioned at exactly the same angle, filming each one of those 3 outdoor advertising screens. So it made sure that you had the sun above the screen and the screen actually showing the sun being eclipsed by Oreo. That was really important because they wanted to put that content together really quickly before the whole solar eclipse journey had finished and push that out on social media. It was also a multi-channel campaign, and it had a cover wrap around the Sun newspaper. So it worked really well for them. Talon, who were behind that, are really proud that they've been shortlisted for a D&AD award. Hopefully they're going to win. One of the judges told me that the reason they got through was because it was an integrated campaign. So again, it's successful for them. Let's have a look at that.
We created the Oreo eclipse by using real-time astronomical data to replicate the exact timings and trajectory of the sun and moon, whilst ensuring that the data for every site was individually timed to account for different start and finish times across the country. To ensure that the UK was talking about our eclipse long after Mother Nature's had finished, we captured each site on time-lapse video and distributed them as 10-second films on social media within an hour of the eclipse's completion. In addition, we also created a translucent cover wrap to literally eclipse the sun for 5.5 million readers of the UK's biggest selling newspaper. As we suspected, the weather in most of the UK made the spectacle less spectacular, which meant that for the rest of the day, our Oreo eclipse content helped Brits commiserate, celebrate, and for some, imitate. On March the 20th, Oreo eclipse was seen by more than 20 million people, and year-on-year sales following the Oreo eclipse rose 59%, making March 2015 Oreo's biggest ever sales month. By giving the UK the eclipse that Mother Nature denied them, we'd made Oreo the star of the celestial event of the decade.
So, it was a great success. As I said, it used 3 digital out-of-home screens with 300,000 opportunity to see, and a social media viral plays, as the film said, 20 million. But for me, these campaigns raise 3 really important points. We should be mindful that these campaigns are also great, but they also produce a bit of a challenge for the industry, where every dynamic brief that we often get has the requirement to be a media first. They want it to win awards. Does dynamic really have to win awards every time? If it's going to be ubiquitous, it can't. Some may argue that the OTS is low and that YouTube have even earned more money than some of the media owners. But you can't deny that these campaigns are an inspiration for creatives to outdo each other. Each one of these dynamic campaigns are planned meticulously at the core. So so many channels, with so many channels at stake, you obviously have to. But what if you apply this kind of meticulous planning dynamically to dynamic campaigns? One of the campaigns where we applied meticulous planning was for Lynx. Lynx, the Calm campaign, supported by Unilever, sought to raise awareness around male suicide. Male suicide last year, it took 4,623 lives. That's 1 man every 2 hours, or 5 men will kill themselves during this conference today. This is because men do not talk about their problems. So we worked with Kinetic and with TMW, and we built a bespoke portal through D4, the content management and deployment system. So a 20-strong team of publishers could type and write the trending topics that were seen on social media and publish those regionally every 2 hours to reference the time that a man in this country kills himself. And that was deployed across 600 screens in the UK. This is part of a national awareness campaign, and as such, every content change was qualified through a supporting microsite. So you could go onto the microsite and you could test these statements. Was J-Law's dress bigger than suicide? Was Boardroom bust-ups or Starbucks red cups bigger than suicide? At that moment it was being talked about a lot more on social media. So it was bigger than suicide. Contentious, of course, but that's the point. And that is the war room in the background. You can only see a few people. The client took this really seriously. The creative agency, TMW, took this really, really seriously. 20 people, 14 days. It was an amazing piece of work. Let's see how well it did.
Suicide is the single biggest killer of young and middle-aged men in the UK. Research out today suggesting more than a third between the ages of 18 and 45 have considered taking their own life.
In 2014, 4,623 men in the UK took their own life. That's one guy every 2 hours. And although these statistics are alarmingly high, awareness remains surprisingly low.
If a guy is saying that he's worried and he's down and he can't cope, then the response back to him is that he needs to grow up, he needs to man up. And for women, nobody says to women, woman up, stop complaining, don't talk about this kind of stuff. But they do with guys.
Having been part of Guy's life since 1985, Lynx had an opportunity to use their profile to help raise awareness of this serious issue. But how do you go about it when it's something that we all find so difficult to talk about? Especially guys. From man buns to celebrity gaffes, teen lineups to emojis, the campaign pulled hot topics from the press and social media to highlight all the things that were bigger than suicide. These everyday topics fueled an eye-catching, real-time ad campaign using social media and digital billboards across the country to draw guys into the issue. And to recognise the rate at which guys are currently taking their own lives, they were updated every 2 hours. Lemons were bigger than suicide in Manchester as the Stone Roses announced their return. In London, people couldn't get enough of Starbucks red cups. A new Twitter like button became a hot topic across the UK, and there was a lot of talk about the weather. Having grabbed their attention, we asked guys to lend their voice to the cause using their Twitter or Facebook handle. Supporters gave us permission to send a single, synchronised message from their account, Thunderclap, on International Men's Day, with the aim of making suicide the biggest issue for one day at least. And the results? The Bigger Issues campaign got the attention of the national press, radio stations, TV, as well as a host of familiar faces. Our Thunderclap trended across the UK, reaching over 23 million people, and even got the attention of government, resulting in male suicide being debated in Parliament for the first time ever.
It was run in association with the men's grooming brand Lynx, and I think we should pay tribute to whoever it was who has taken that decision.
According to a YouGov poll, as a result of the campaign, awareness of male suicide is increased by 45%. For one day, we got everyone talking bigger issues.
So in terms of how well that campaign performed, the ROI, as I said, it can be measured by, from the YouGov poll, 45% increase in awareness of male suicide. It was amazing. Discussed in Parliament for the first time. The creative team were also invited to Buckingham Palace to say thank you. And again, it's still in the news. I don't know if you've heard. Prince William was talking about it last week. So it did a job. It did its job very well. And it had 23 million impressions on social media in total. In terms of the opportunities to see, that was 18.2 million. That was because it ran for 2 weeks across about 400 odd screens. Neil, is that right? So it did do really well. Dynamic at scale does perform. It has a good ROI. Moving on to a campaign that we're very proud of because we think it's creatively quite beautiful. Anna uses out-of-home advertising for its original purpose, imagery. Working closely with Mindshare and Kinetic, this campaign took the same kind of meticulous planning that we saw in some of the previous campaigns, where we actually went out and visited 30 sites on the media plan, with camera crew, film crew to shoot that site from multiple different angles. and we produced a number of mock-ups of those sites because effectively we were trying to produce this kind of image. So it's that kind of Channel 4 logo moment where everything comes into alignment. You can see obviously the church behind. There's a camera positioned behind that screen. The important factor with this campaign across, I think, 4 different media owners who were brilliant. We had to have cherry pickers that go up onto those screens. Chris, who was here, went up on many of those cherry pickers to actually install cameras. And those cameras were constantly feeding back imagery onto the screen. And it really created a really strong sense of engagement between ourselves, the agency, and the media owner. Because the client insisted on sitting there every day at 9:30 in the morning, looking at all the images as they came in, choosing the Instagram filter that was then applied to the screen. And it benefited the whole account relationship. And yeah, Land Rover are very, very happy. Let's have a quick look.
We live in a land where the rain and the clouds rule the winter months. Instead of locking the doors, sticking on the heating and hibernating, Land Rover says, Hibernot, an annual celebration of the great outdoors that sees winter differently. This year, the brand wanted to engage more than just mud lovers, to show their younger, urban audience how to see winter in a new light. Our thinking? If Land Rover is a brand that champions the beauty of winter, we should use media to expose that beauty rather than covering it up. So instead of obstructing dramatic views, we made them the heroes of their city. With perfectly positioned digital out-of-home, we exposed real urban landscapes. 6 influential London sites were fitted with live HD cameras, transforming them into windows to reveal the hidden winter views behind. A pioneering partnership with Instagram helped us develop multiple filters that were applied in an instant to show each view in its very best light, meaning we could change the image as much as the British weather changes its mind. Our objective was to get this audience outside, sharing their winter, and this recognisable visual style inspired our audience through a format they use every day. With over 10,000 Hibernot photos on Instagram, they have definitely been inspired to see winter in a new light. Hibernate, no chance.
So how well did it perform? Had a 1-month run. That was two parts of the campaign. The first 2 weeks were with the camera installed behind the screen. The second part of the campaign where it inspired members of the public to bring in their own and send in their own Instagram photos. That was the second 2 weeks of the campaign. So the second 2 weeks had 100 screens. And the total number of opportunities to see for that campaign was 2.8 million, with a social media impression, 6.8 million social media impressions. And the PR value for that campaign was 3.5. So again, scale, yes, there were 7 screens in total. So it does work at scale. In terms of the response on social media, it performed very well. So yes, dynamic can still be done at scale and use screens for their original use. Beautiful imagery. Now we saw Sarah talked about this campaign earlier. I'm just going to go into this one with a little bit more depth. Clear Channel, who were our client, came to us with this very challenging brief. And it was to deploy a dynamic and phone-triggered activation for multiple sites. And to only work with the campaign's core audience as well. We can only initiate the content when the core audience was seen. And to be responsive to that audience. Responsive in terms of it would put up messages onto the screen when that core audience was there. And we had to know the mix of audience as well. If there were 2 women of the right age and 1 man of the wrong age, then it would put up the right content. So that was complex in its nature. And it had to make the whole interaction feel really, really personal. And have a consultation with Dr. Hillary. Talking about or confronting your health issues is very, very personal. How do you do that? How do you get across that boundary? So we had this idea of, well, how about just calling the number on the screen, you get put through to Dr. Hillary, and that triggers a video on the screen, which is in complete sync with Dr. Hillary. So it looks like he's actually talking to you. On the first day in Brighton, rather than activate that recorded message, Dr. Hillary would stand behind the screen and reveal himself. I was a bit wrong. He would step out from behind the screen, completely time-synced to be filmed for the viral. That whole viral filming, by the way, was again another challenge, because PHE said to us they didn't want any actors. So everyone that you have seen in the last edit, and this is a new one, no one's an actor. Everyone was truly captured on site. That is incredibly difficult to do, incredibly difficult to manage. Well, so the drunks don't turn up, so all the annoying people who want to get in the way don't turn up. How do you manage and control an environment so everyone has a great reaction? We were there for one day and we got 17 people who actually went through the whole mechanic, and with Dr. Hillary as well. So, yeah, the production team we had for that was 30 people, 30 strong team, with eyeball cameras, cue ball cameras, secreted throughout the bus stop. And more difficult than that is collecting the audio. How do you actually record the audio? And you heard how close mic that lady was earlier. The only actors we did use were people with selfie sticks, pretending to take pictures of themselves, but they actually had a microphone on the end of their selfie stick, getting in there, getting a close mic sound. Here's a new edit for it.
Hi, Dr. Hillary here.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
How's your health really?
Looks like he's looking at you. I'm in a bus stop in Brighton and it's got your number on the bus stop.
Well, what are you doing with that cigarette in your hand then?
Is it not upsetting your health yet? Do you have any health problems?
I suppose now you ask, yeah. I mean, I get a bit stressed in my job and I find that affects my sleep.
Yeah. Just hold on, I'll come and see you.
Oh.
Hello. 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 You really are in Brighton on a lovely day. Well, because you saw me on...
I can't believe it.
And everyone who made that phone call then got a text message with a link to go online and find out more about how they can take their health a bit more seriously. Okay, how well did it perform? We knew that we had 842,000 opportunities to see across those 10 different bus stops, which is great. We know we had that beforehand. But in terms of, we had obviously the demographic, the QVD camera that was installed in all the bus stops as well. And that gave us daily data readings, and we knew the dwell time and the attention time that we were getting from everyone looking at the screen. And we had 200,000 interactions with the actual screen as well. That was across the 10 sites. And this level of interaction was achieved because that viral, the one that Sarah showed, that was actually the viral that actually introduced the campaign. That was released on the first day of the campaign, so it helped to inform everyone that they could go and see the bus stops within the Facebook profile pages and on the PHE website. It actually shows you where you can go and interact with the bus stops. And within 24 hours of the campaign going live, that viral had 4 million social media impressions. So again, it's done at scale. It's only 10 screens, but the ROI again is really impressive. And most importantly, the campaign worked out the box. Literally, there was no support. It was literally delivered. It worked out the box. I know we've talked about this one before. You may have heard about Heathrow Express because it's now it's been delivered about a year ago, and it's won a number of awards for us. Very proud of it. I'm particularly proud of it because creatively, it's not a wonderful piece. It's very functional in its use, but that's kind of the point. when you turn up at Heathrow Airport and you're wondering, how am I, as a tourist, how am I going to get to London for the first time? In your city, the choice mode of transport would be the car, for instance. Well, in this city, it's not. Yes, Heathrow Express is a little bit, probably the most expensive in terms of per mile train ticket in the country, but it's still cheaper than a black cab, and that's the kind of message that we wanted to get across. It uses 7 gold standard API feeds that deliver a live time and cost saving. It has a live timetable, so when you've realised at that moment how much time and money will it save, it tells you what time the next train's going to leave, and it's got a targeted multilingual translation. It's got automated delay fallback and records the campaign. So if there is a digital ticket that's raised by the client because they've got delays and the timetable is incorrect or something's going wrong, the campaign automatically goes to fallback and gets recorded. I suppose the reason why I wanted to share this with you today is because we've recently had the sales statistics out. It's been going for 9 months. And we've had the number of impacts the campaign has received across those 9 months is 55.5 million opportunities to see, should I say. More importantly, it's generated, as a direct result, £4 million worth of additional revenue. Compared to the investment in the campaign in the first place, that's 8,000% return on investment. Dynamic at scale really does work. And it doesn't have to be amazing. It can be functional, and it can help us make our purchase decisions. It does work. If you haven't seen it, here's a quick edit for it.
Heathrow is one of the busiest airports in the world, but it lands many of its millions of passengers with a question: how on earth do I get to central London? Heathrow Express is the fastest and most reliable transport option, and compared to a black cab, the cheapest. But how do you communicate this to a multilingual audience when the road conditions are in constant flux? That's what our unique transfer comparison generator sets out to solve. At baggage claim, passengers are greeted by a comprehensive onward travel information screen. In fact, a carefully orchestrated and complex world first in advertising, devised by DailyDOOH and Saatchi Macias, leading over a £4 million increase in turn-up-and-go ticket sales. The installation integrates 5 separate data feeds with Heathrow Air Traffic Control to give a 100% accurate live picture of the passengers' transfer options. First, we show a live simulation of London's skyline, which is rendered from weather information from the Met Office, while Big Ben shows the accurate time. This importantly captures consumer confidence in this real-time information engine. Then we integrate Google Maps live positioning data with live journey times from across TomTom's 18 million users, and add traffic flow and route analysis via 24 satellites across the London road network. For comparative journey info, we match data from the Highways Agency and Network Rail's Orbis rail computer system, which constantly monitors and delivers up-to-the-minute rail status. Then, current black cab fare information is displayed, a precise calculation made by a bespoke algorithmic engine with information from Transport for London. Finally, the information is tailored to each passenger through a direct link with Heathrow Air Traffic Control. The site knows the passenger's country of origin and so translates itself into their own language. In fact, a perfect communications marriage between the complexity of multi-layered digital information and the simplicity of advertising communication.
All right, okay, I'm going to come to a conclusion now. When it comes to integrated dynamic campaigns at scale with true ROI, I think with the right, well-defined media plan, yes, it can absolutely be done. Find the right sites, make sure that they fit the campaign idea, make sure if the sites are relative to the campaign core creative idea, then they need to be researched and researched really well. It can work where dynamic works out of the box. Obviously, if you're going to produce dynamic campaigns at scale, they need to work out of the box. They need to have technical integrity, so you don't need to support them manually, support the activation of the campaign itself. And you have to have gold standard project management. We spend more time supporting the client and going through the account managements and several meetings than probably actually spending time producing these interactive programs effectively. Account management is really key because the clients often come to us with the same amount of, or the lack of knowledge, so they need hand-holding. Dynamic innovation does deliver scale. If you can have dynamic at its core and it works with the creative, it absolutely can deliver scale. And we are always constantly applying new innovative ways to support dynamic out of home. What are those? Yes, I'm going to get it in there. Anthony would kill me if I didn't. If you haven't heard of Mesh, Mesh is a closed Wi-Fi network. It's on now. If you go to your phones, look for the plus symbol, Wi-Fi plus, log onto that. Effectively, you've got that presentation, all the videos within that presentation on a closed Wi-Fi network. To us old people in the room, it's like an intranet. It's not talking to the it's not talking to the internet, but you're talking to it at the full bandwidth capacity of your phone, which means you can scrub up and down that video as much as you like. If you think about that and you think about applying that to out of home, and you can have a more engaged audience with deeper levels of engagement about that advert. So these are other ways that we are talking to or innovating around out of home. Thank you very much.